What's up guys, my name is Andy. I got a fun video today. I'm going to be installing some interior parts that I've been wanting to get to. And as you spend so much time in the cab, you kind of want it to be nice, right? You want it to be something that you enjoy while you're sitting in there. Things are fresh, things are new, things are looking like you want, or they look cool or whatever. And one of the things that I didn't really like about my steering wheel here in my 68 F100 is it's got some cracks in the plastic and it's a tired steering wheel. Now this one right here, I need to give credit to Flip Flop Garage. He has the same steering wheel on his F100 and I really like the way it looks. I like this simple black handle on here and this brushed aluminum center section here. I like this steering wheel. I think it's fun, and as I continue to fix up the truck and get it kind of towards where I want to be with it, these are the kind of parts that I like to put on there, and I like to have fun with that kind of stuff. I got a couple more parts I'm going to put on the truck, but let's get started and I'll show you how to get this part installed. And just for size comparison, here's what the new steering wheel will be relative to the old one. So, you know, we're about an inch shorter all the way around. So what is that, 2 inch shorter diameter, inch and a half, something like that. So a little bit smaller. It'll give you a little bit more room underneath the steering wheel when you're climbing out of the truck. So that'll be nice since I don't have a tilt column. Yeah, that'll look good. Of course it'll go the other way, but, and then kind of fun thing, this horn didn't come on my truck when I got it. But again, the guy, Flip Flop Garage, he sent me that from his truck because he didn't need it because he put on a new steering wheel. So I thought it was kind of cool that he sent me that, but now I'm not going to need it because we're going to put this new steering wheel on. You're also going to need a new hub, and then Grant makes a bunch of different hub kits for the various vehicles. This is the part number that you need, but I'll put all the part numbers for this stuff in the description below the video. But the first thing we want to do is we're going to take this off. We just push in and twist, and this will come off of here. And then we're gonna get, I believe this is a 15/16 nut. And then because I've had this off before, I'll be able to knock this off with a hammer. But for those of us that haven't taken the steering wheel off, you're gonna need to get a steering wheel puller. And they look like these kind of devices. We just put on the center here, then you put a couple of bolts in here and you can thread them into these holes here in the steering hub. And as you drive this thing out, it'll pull this off. But I shouldn't have that problem with this because I've had it off pretty recently. This is kind of hard to do with one hand holding the camera, but now we got that nut loose. Just a little bit more. I had to put the camera down for a second, but it only took one whack on the back of the steering wheel spoke to break this freak in because I've had this thing off in the past, so that was pretty easy. I probably should have mentioned that it's a good idea to have your steering wheel straight when you take this off so that you put the new steering wheel on and it'll all be straight. But you can fix that later, but it's just easier if you just have this lined up to begin with. Okay, so once you have this off, another thing I want to point out is this little tab here on the back of the hub. We're going to come back to that because I'm going to show you on the new hub how that's going to work. That's your turn signal cancel system that's on the stock steering wheel. But next, let's talk about the hub and how we're going to put everything together on here. Let's go over to the counter real quick and I'll talk about what's in this kit. All right, taking all the various pieces out of here. So what we've got, a couple different things going on here. First of all, these instructions that came with the steering wheel, you know, I really wish Grant would put a little more effort into this. I mean, you can tell that this has been copied and then recopied and printed. I mean, you've got these kind of lines on the side, and particularly like this page right here, look at how faded that is. You almost can't read it. I mean, I don't know, it is what it is, but I really wish they put a little more effort into their instructions. What we're gonna have here, now on the steering column, there's that little springy contact. That's the horn contact. That's gonna ride on this copper surface here. So that means this has to go down like so. Also, notice these two holes right here. There's going to be, in this kit, depending on which one you get, but the one I have has 2 roll pins. And you're gonna wanna put the split in the roll pin towards the center of the hub. And we're not gonna put them in yet, but you're gonna put them in and you wanna make sure you don't drive them in too far, because if they're in too far, they won't cancel that plastic part on the turn signal cancel system. So we're gonna have to do that here in a second, but I'm gonna put both of these in, and as you turn the wheel, these will trip that plastic system and cancel the turn signal. So set that aside for a second. We're gonna hold that for a second. So this is gonna go this way on the steering hub with those roll pins in there. Then we're going to feed this wire up through here. Then the steering wheel would get mounted on here. We're gonna feed this wire up through like that. And then that would get mounted on there. And then we're gonna attach this wire to this. And we probably, if you bend this and feed it back down through the hole, and that'll be on there like that. And then these 3 guys, these 3 bolts that come in this little baggie, these are the ones that we're gonna screw this this little plate here and the steering wheel and the all together with this setup, and then this spring system is going to go here on the center, and this cap is the last thing that we're going to put on. And once we're going to put this on, we're going to push down and twist it, and we'll do all that at the very end. But that's the order in which these get stacked, putting them in the truck. Now, depending on what kit you have, there might be a slightly different part. You know, in the instructions, they show a little bit different hubs depending on what you might have. But anyways, the information is all here, and I'd say it's almost self-explanatory. This is not meant to be complicated. It's a pretty simple system, but I'm gonna go ahead and get those pins in there. And when you put them in, just put them in a little bit and then go test it and see if they're sticking out too far. You can push them in a little bit more, but don't put them in too far, because it's almost impossible to pull them back out without damage and stuff. All right, we got everything installed. I think I was telling you guys to put the plate upside down earlier, but anyways, this is how it goes. It's a little bit of work to kind of line everything up, get everything in place. So we'll hook this up here when we're done, but now we can go put this in the car, and then on those roll pins, you put them in here, you tap them in, and it's a little bit of work, but you get them in here, and then you just take this hub and you just put it on there and just make sure that these things are in far enough so they don't scrape on the plastic part there by the turn signal cancel, but don't put them in too far. So it's just a little bit of a trial and error on that. Cool. So I think this is good to go. And this will save this spring and this cap for the end, because we got to go install this on the truck. All right, now if you were paying attention like me, which I wasn't, those roll pins actually need to be in this part right here. So if the steering wheel mounts like this, those roll pins, I got to clock that thing just one, move everything over one. So let me do it real quick. All right, now I got that fixed. Now those roll pins are on the right side, or left-hand side, I guess, to put this on here. So if you're looking inside here, you can see how those two roll pins will fit right down inside in between the plastic there for the turn signal. And looking from the front, you want this to be as straight as possible. Now you might be off a tooth. You can always come back and fix that later, but we gotta start somewhere. Now I'm gonna have to put the camera down because I gotta put this nut on here, push this in and put the nut on. And then once you get done tightening this, hopefully you'll have enough thread engagement. I don't know if I need to drive this on there farther, but I don't like the gap that's in here. However, with the gap here, you can see the canceling happen. Let's see here, if we push it down and then, yeah, see that? Canceling works. That's good. So that's important. Those roll pins are in the right spot. Cool, so then from here, we just put the spring on, and then we're gonna put this cap on. But because my horn's working, see, I'm gonna disconnect the battery so I can hook all this up without the horn going off. So then we can connect the wire there. And what we've got going on here is, I'm have to put the camera down, but we're gonna put this spring right here on the top of the stud, or the shaft here for the steering shaft, and it's gonna push on the cap, and it's actually gonna lift this system up off of the steering wheel. See how it kind of moves? It'll keep it floating, and then when you push on the horn, it'll push down, it'll contact, and it'll ground out and do the thing for the horn. But again, something I'm gonna have to do with both hands. Can't hold the camera. All right, now once you see these little tabs, there's little marks on here, and you just push it on and spin it around until it stops, and it's kind of floating. So I have the battery unplugged, but see how it's kind of floating like that because of that spring, and that's what we want. So let me hook up the battery so we can see if our horn works. All right, now that we got the battery hooked up, let's give it a shot. Haha, awesome. Cool, so there is the Grant steering wheel. It is a little bit smaller than probably what you're used to with the old factory size. I'm gonna like the extra leg room in there, but the only downside with a smaller steering wheel like this is if you don't have power steering, there's a little bit more work involved because you have less torque, right? Because the force times perpendicular distance, right? You need a larger steering wheel without power steering, but we're gonna be okay because I've got plans for that down the road. We're gonna be fine. But for now, I think this is a great upgrade. Cool. All right, next project. So the next part I want to put on are just some new rubber boot covers, or the pedal covers for the pedals. They're kind of worn out. They got some paint on there, and this is all worn down to the metal. It's just tearing up. I mean, this is not an exciting upgrade, but it's something that I just, you want to freshen up the truck as you're going along. So to take these things off, usually you can just get behind them with a flathead screwdriver and just peel them off there we go, just like that. And there's not much to them, holding them on there. In fact, this one might come off by itself here. There, yeah. So again, worn out, time for some new ones. Here, I'm just comparing the new ones to the old ones. Again, nothing fancy, but it does freshen up a little bit. There, not too big of a deal, but it does freshen it up, and they're only a couple bucks a piece. So if you're buying other parts from your truck supplier, throwing those in the order, you know, makes it pretty easy because you're kind of already paying for the shipping anyway. So cool. All right, next project. Now I'm like everybody else. I really don't like a cracked dash. This is just not any fun. This looks horrible. It's all dried and cracked, and they're expensive to replace, and I understand that, but what can you do in the meantime? What can you do to kind of jazz it up a little bit to make it look a little nicer, but doesn't look like you went the cheap route? Well, there's these Dash Designs make these carpeted dash pads that are custom fit to fit on to our dash. And then it comes with a Velcro system that will stick to the factory dash that I have, and then it'll stick to the bottom of that and hold everything in place. Let me lay this up there real quick. All right, there we go. Now it's all laid out, and you can see how these cutouts in here for the vents are good to go. Now the speaker, it'll still, if you had a speaker in there, it'll play through that. You'll be fine. You'll be able to hear it. But I mean, I know it kind of cheapens up the truck a little bit, but it's better than having that cracked dash. And I just don't have, you know, what is it, like $500-600 to replace this guy. I just don't have that kind of money right now. So I think I'm gonna just rock this for a while until I find something different. And these are pretty cheap. I was like 60 bucks or something like that for this dash mat. So cool, I'm gonna read the instructions real quick and get these Velcro pieces installed, and then we'll be done with that. All right, the first step is to cut all these up into little tiny pieces. Should be about 24 of them, and we're gonna stick them throughout the dash, and they're gonna stick underneath here, but we gotta clean off, use the little moist towel that they include. Clean off the dash, get all the dust and debris off of there, get everything nice and clean. Then we're gonna lay this up on top, and then start in one corner and put a tab here, put one over there, and then just kind of work our way around and play them where you need them. You know, if you need to put them in the center, or on the edge, or wherever you find, if you've got something sticking up. So they'll take a couple minutes, so let me do that real quick. All right, I think that came out pretty good. There is no real specific place to put them, but you just kind of find a place that, if it looks like a good spot to put it, and it'll hold it, and I guess you could buy more if you need to. Should be plenty. If you cut them all to the instructions, you'd have 24 little pieces, and that's enough to kind of hold everything down, especially when you have the wind swirling around in here and stuff like that. But I think it looks a lot better than that cracked dash. I'm very happy. Wow, look at how bad, when I was cleaning off, the color is coming off of that so bad because it's so worn out, but I need a new dash. But I like it. Cool. Cool, so that was just a bunch of upgrades that I wanted to do to the truck. Stuff on the interior of the truck when you're sitting there, you're looking at everything. Stuff that you want to jazz up and make it kind of your own, make it custom. I'm happy with how it came out. I think particularly that dash pad, is gonna look a lot better than that cracked old blue dash that's up there until I get a chance to replace that. So, and then the only thing I went to start the truck the other day, and it's one of those things where you know of the problem, but until it happens to you, you don't know what it is exactly. And then once you realize, like, oh, that's dumb, I should have figured that out. Went to fire up the truck the other day, and the float in my fuel bowl, it's here. Let me see if you can hear it. There's fluid and there's gas in here, and so I didn't film when I was having the problem, but I filmed afterwards when I fixed that, so I'll show you that here in a second. But I had fuel pouring out of the carb, and it would start barely, but it would just run so bad because it was being flooded. And there, so much so that the fuel was coming out of the breather tube in the carb. And again, right off the bat, you don't realize, you don't notice it, like, oh, dumb, I know what that is. And so I got that fixed. And here's real quick how I fixed that float. So here's the bowl disassembled. To take this out, you gotta take the float adjustment screw out, and then you can take this whole assembly out. It's not complicated at all. You just have to take this guy out of the top, and you can pull this out with some screws in the front. But I wanted to show you this. The reason the problem I'm having is this thing has got fluid in it, and I'm gonna bring it by the microphone. You can hear that fluid sloshing around inside the float. I cannot find a hole. No matter which way I tip it, I can't get anything to leak. So I don't know how fluid got in here, but it did. And with the fluid in there, it's weighted, so we'll put it this way, so it's weighted down, right, inside the bowl here, and the fluid level in the bowl can't lift this up to shut off the valve to keep the fuel from flowing in here. So with this thing down all the way, fuel is just pumping into this bowl no matter what I do, and it's just going into the carb and just flooding out the engine, and so much so it's puking out the top of the breather tube on top of the carb. So anyways, I got a new one. This is cheap. I think I paid like 10 bucks for this guy. So I'm just going to go ahead and just assemble it. Put this pin back in here. And then I can put this guy back inside here. And then I'll put these 2 screws in. And then now what I did just to get me started, when I unthreaded this, I counted 5 full revolutions. Now that's not a good way to do it, but at least gets me back to roughly where it was, and then I can take this sight screw out of here and adjust the float level to where it needs to be, but at least it gets me close. So when I put this in, once the threads start grabbing, I know that I have to go 5 times around to get me close, and then I can adjust it. So cool, let me get this put back together. So anyways, got it done. Truck fires right up. I don't have fuel everywhere now, so easy problem. Again, I should have filmed the problem I was having just so I could show you guys for those that haven't experienced that yet. And if you're wondering what's going on, that's what it was. So bad float, again, I can't find how the fluid got in here, but it's a mystery. But anyways, cool. So we're on to the next project. And again, guys, if you get a chance, head over to my website, KruseBuilt.com, and get yourself a shirt. Or the new hat that I got going on here, the new KruseBuilt logo hat. That's pretty fresh design, something added real recently. So if you guys want to check that out, that'd be great. I appreciate it. Cool. All right, guys, on to the next project.